Welcome everyone to OnPodcast, the Microsoft podcast, where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by
David Allen, good to be back with you guys. And before we get started, I know I had received several Twitter DMs from some of our watchers and readers. I had posted that my mother passed away, and I greatly appreciate you guys reaching out. That meant a lot to me, and I'm glad to be back and glad to be back in business.
We are glad to have you back. We are back here with some more Microsoft news. Per usual, we got a lot of headlines to go through. We actually got a pretty interesting discussion to talk about as well, whether or not AI can help Windows. Not that it's, Windows can't be saved, but is it AI that's going to save it? That'll be reserved for the end of our podcast today. But some of our headlines we're going to be kind of covering is Microsoft dropping Cortana in Windows officially. So those of you who got used to the being the butt of all jokes, you no longer have to deal with that. Lenovo Legion is going with a handheld for next year, I believe. Microsoft's first-party replacement for Xbox Series S and X controllers is now official in the store, I believe so. We got a Surface rumors roundup section where we're talking about the Go, the next version of the Go, and the laptop as well, and see what's coming down the pipe for those. We also have Microsoft experiences its largest workforce reduction, cutting 11,000 jobs in this year. I think the last time they did that was when they lobbed off the cancer that was Nokia, I believe. So we will be talking about that. Also, something I kind of predicted, and we talked about several times, about how Clipchamp would become more of an enterprise tool than something people would replace Windows Movie Maker with, and it looks like it's becoming a reality. So let's get into our first headline. I'll let you open it up with whatever you wanted to go with.
Well, I'm going to open it up with something fun. The Lenovo is talking about giving us the Lenovo Legion Go, which is said to be the next handheld PC that is going to be a Steam Deck competitor. Now, we don't know a whole lot about it, except like you were saying in the opening, it's supposed to be available sometime early next year. We know it will be running Windows 11, and it's supposed to be running the AMD Phoenix processor. It's also speculated to have an 8-inch screen, whereas the ROG Ally, which has recently came out with by Asus, is a 7-inch screen, and I believe the Steam Deck that started this whole handheld revolution is also a 7-inch screen. Part of what makes this, I think, more important is we're starting to see more and more of these handheld gaming these gaming devices come up. We've got one by Logitech that is just for cloud gaming. We've got the Asus ROG Ally, we've got the Steam Deck, and if you get on Amazon, I did this last night, and you start looking up handheld gaming devices, you see a lot of Chinese devices that necessarily aren't heavily marketed in the United States, but the kicker is, for the Windows folks out there, they're all running Windows 11, and we have heard rumors that there could be a version of Windows 11/Windows 12 for some of these handheld devices. And I think the more we see of these handheld gaming devices, they're going to get popular again. They say things kind of do a 360. We had the Game Boys back in the day. I'm sure you guys remember those. We had the PlayStation PSPs. I think this is kind of the handheld gaming reincarnation, and I think it would be good for Windows, because if they start selling, Microsoft is going to pay attention to that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you just said there. That's awesome. Fingers crossed for handheld games and for Microsoft to make an operating system that works well for that, not just slap on Windows and hope it, with all of its drivers, updates, and bugs, works for that. Ideally, we'll get, Windows Gaming as the OS, or, whatever they're going to call this thing. They already lost it with the branding for Windows X or Windows 10. So maybe we just get Windows Gaming, and it's super light, this core version that everyone keeps talking about that just runs this particular thing, but allows people to, tinker with the VMware that's necessary to run Steam and everything else.
And I hope we do, because I have had the brief opportunity to pick up a Asus ROG Ally, and this was a 15-minute deal, folks. So I didn't get a whole lot of time to dig into it, but you can certainly, being the tech enthusiast that we are, see that there is a gap between ease of use for the pick up and play gamer versus having to deal with Windows and all the minor details that you have to deal with, the installing of software. It would, like you said, it would be lovely if Microsoft would give us something that says, look, we're going to make this easy for you, a one consistent interface. You don't necessarily have to look at a Windows traditional desktop to do anything.
No, just find a way to merge the Xbox UI on top of this thing.
Exactly.
You can still get your browser, you still get access to apps, you can still download, things like that. So here's talking to you, Microsoft. Going on to our next one, I have a bit of somber news about gaming. For those of us who were fans of Halo and Cortana and their relationship, it is now gone. Microsoft drops Cortana app in Windows, introduces advanced AI productivity tools as a replacement. To ease the transition, Microsoft is offering an alternative resource for Windows users, which is now called Voice Access. It's a new feature that allows users to control their PCs to write text using voice commands, working offline with advanced speech recognition. Moreover, the new AI-powered Bing provides concise answers from trusted web sources to complex questions through Bing Chat. The Microsoft 365 Copilot, new AI feature, leverages users Microsoft 365 data, calendars, emails, and chats to help kind of recreate an assistant vibe. Is just, we're no longer going to be talking to it, which, with this news coming about, it makes sense. I think we are quickly transitioning from yelling at our speakers and our phones and our computers and our TVs to getting specialized information via text or context. Not to say that everyone's typing and everything, but at least contextually speaking, your devices know what their uses are for, and they kind of tailor towards that. You don't have to really guide them. So it's sad news for Cortana as the brand. I don't even believe she's in the game anymore. I believe Infinite's correct or whatnot. Last time I played, so this may be her final hurrah.
She is retired. I'm not even sure she made it to her senior years. I did not like it. I never will like it, but I will say this, and I don't want to steal anything from what's coming up in the podcast. If you look at the Copilot window that is in Windows 11 that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, it kind of gave me a bad Cortana vibe because it's kind of got the look, and I'm like, no, if you look at the little logo, okay, yeah, I get that they bent the logo this way or the other, but I still got that darn Cortana vibe.
I mean, we're going to talk about whether or not assistances are necessary, because again, this leaves basically Siri alone. Google Assistant kind of threads the needle of being both voice operated and being part of this new evolution of chat AI infused assistants or whatnot. But I mean, do people really still use voice commands to operate their devices routinely, or is it mostly just random searches at like 2 a.m. or when you're watching a movie you wonder who a specific actor or actress is? Because I feel like for all the power that these things could have done over the last 5 to 7 years, we as users haven't expounded on that. So maybe it's on us. What's our next headline?
Let's see, what else do we have here? We have Microsoft is offering you the chance to have replacement parts for your Xbox Elite Series 2 controller. So basically what this means is, one, you need to be a little tech savvy. Microsoft does make that clear on their website. You can order parts for that expensive customized gaming controller, the Xbox Elite Series 2. They do offer you PDFs with instructions, and they do make it clear, like I said, these type of repairs require moderate technical skill and are suited for enthusiast professionals or those with prior experience with electronic disassembly. Now, so you can get on the website. You can use the PDF that they offer and buy your parts and repair it yourself. And they're kind of putting this under the, consumer right to repair that has kind of been floating out there. I think, we went through a period with technology where we could repair everything as consumers, and we could put our laptops back together, we could put our PCs back together. Then we wanted things thin, light, small, so we kind of went to a lot of solid state things where things are soldered on. And I think we're seeing some things come back to where, hey, if you spend $200 on a controller and it breaks, you can actually repair it, assuming you have the skills. Way to go, Microsoft. I'd love to see other people will pick this idea up.
Yeah, I agree. I think the trade-off we had over time was that we were paying for the efficiency of a device. When you said you had your memory soldered on, you had your batteries placed in, we were trusting that the companies, when they were charging us more for these things, that the devices would last longer and do these kind of things. And don't get me wrong, devices are lasting longer, but the prices are becoming absorbent. So I think the trade-off is now people are like, well, if I'm going to keep this device, if I'm going to get the lifespan of the dollars I put into this, I'd like to repair it myself. I'd like to keep its life going versus, all right, it's got a lifespan of 4 to 5 years at most, and then I'll, chuck it away after spending $1,800. Like, I don't think people are all that apt to be doing that anymore these days.
I saw something on another podcast earlier in the week that the idea of swappable cell phone batteries needs to come back, because a lot of people just, simply my phone is one of them. My phone is 5 years old and the battery isn't great. There's nothing wrong with the rest of the phone. So just, it kind of shows that, hey, bring the swappable batteries back, and, people can get, longer life out of their phone. Now, Samsung, Apple, Google don't want to hear that, because they want you to go spend $1,700 on the new shiny foldables that are out. But I think the consumer needs the choice of what they want to do.
I totally agree with you. Moving on, we have Microsoft bringing Clipchamp video tools to Microsoft 365 commercial customers. We've been saying this for a little bit now, that Microsoft, having purchased and eventually integrating Clipchamp into Windows, was just another way for the company to offer more tools for businesses, and particularly, I think, for people who are in marketing, or at least have small marketing divisions. Microsoft announced that its popular video creation tool, which was announced last year, rebranded, and added some fluent designs and logos, and I believe a few more features since it's been purchased, will now be available to Microsoft 365 commercial customers through the targeted release program. Previously only accessible with personal Microsoft accounts, the expansion aims to enhance business productivity and creativity. Clipchamp's forthcoming availability for commercial customers in the targeted release program, scheduled to end at the end of this month, August 2023. IT administrators can opt into for their organizations to access this feature, and then they can obviously dole out user licenses once they've gotten in the program. Microsoft encourages users to provide feedback during this release phase to further improve Clipchamp's experience. So if you are, like I said, in their market division and you want to use tools and don't want to pay for an Adobe subscription or get to learn Filmora or any of these other things, you just want to do something quick with templated software, I think Clipchamp's great at that. It has tools specifically designed to make posts for Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, things like that. So if you just need something, say you are promoting whatever your latest widget is or whatever your latest discount is, this is probably the quickest way to do that if you're using Windows. Get your IT admins to get you guys access to that and get going. Like I said, I think at the end of the day, creatives always complain, one, about the battery life of Windows devices. I think that's their biggest thing. But the second thing is just the software. There's no dedicated inbox software like you have with Final Cut or iMovie or an equivalent. I think Clipchamp is hopefully going to be ideally that thing. It'll be your iMovie-ish mix between that and Adobe or Final Cut. That'll allow people to start up their newest Windows device and start editing some videos really quickly. And it's as far as I can tell, it's pretty lightweight. It's a web app, so like I said, I think it was designed specifically to help businesses, and for the most part.
I agree, and I have tinkered with it a little bit, and I actually, for like you said, for if you understand its limitations and it's meant to be just a quick, promo or something like that. Now, please don't put your 45-minute, video in there and expect special effects, but I have actually put Clipchamp, the web version, on a Chromebook in a pinch, and could quickly edit just a little home movie to send a clip to somebody on Instagram. And the fact that it renders via the web, it's not as quick as your dedicated GPU, laptop or whatever. So be aware of that. But I think this is cool. Microsoft is venturing away from just straight productivity, and I've always said, and I'm still thinking about it, how far does the 365 branding go? This is a step out. We've had Microsoft Designer, which was also a part of 365, and I'm interested to see where they take it.
Yeah, another use case, because we're always talking about creating video, but for those of you who work in HR, who work in IT, you can also do great tutorials, walkthroughs. This is another, I know that PowerPoint recently got an addition where you can record yourself going over your presentation. If you didn't want to use PowerPoint, you can use this to do the same thing. If you have presentations or you have quick notes or things that you need to send people via video per se, or some type of animation, this is another way to do that. So has multifaceted. Hopefully Microsoft, is a good steward of the software and keeps it going. It adds to creative features people are going to request for during this, month span and month testing. And we see it grow, hopefully. What is our next headline?
Well, we gotta have a little sad news here, folks, and I don't like to give you guys.
If Cortana dying wasn't sad enough.
Yeah, I'm heartbroken over that one. Microsoft has cut 11,000 jobs in the fiscal year of 2023. Now, it's not a surprise. They did tell us earlier in the year that, this was coming. They kind of told us the end of last year this was coming. But when you see the news put down on paper as to how much they actually took away from the workforce, kind of makes you step back a minute. We have over 1,000 employees were let go, and we had customer service division underwent a transformation, and they're down to 221,000 employees, a decline from the peak of 232,000 employees. So, a lot of people I have read in forums and whatnot, and that's part of the reason I wanted to talk about this. You see that number, and we just had their earnings, a week, 10 days ago, and you see, well, this company made billions of dollars. They had revenue. They had enough money to keep these 10,000 employees or 11,000 employees they let go. You're right. They do have enough money to keep these 11,000 employees on, but you have to remember, they have to answer to the stockholder, and the stockholder doesn't want to hear, oh, we were good folks and we made the money last year, so we kept these employees on. That the stockholder the investor stockholder wants to see maximum profit and less expenses. So if it's not needed for us to produce profit, then the stockholder wants it gone. They don't want to hear that you were good stewards and you kept 11,000 people on just because we could afford it. That's kind of like, well, we run the air condition 365 days a year at Microsoft, but we're only there 300. They want you to turn the air condition off so you're not wasting the money. So you have to look at it from the investor's point of view as well.
Yeah, it is always sad news for anybody to lose a job, because it's some people have livelihoods. I know, Ben Rudolph, who's had been there for decades or whatever. He was him and his division were let go a few months back, and other people that we know, their divisions weren't held up. I know that a lot of their cuts were from the sales team, and I think that perhaps may be indicative of the product that they're producing. I think there are fewer and fewer necessities for admins to be handheld through implementing Microsoft's software and services. So one of two things are happening. Either those people are meeting their quota for as far as reaching out to business, or again, like you said, there may just be a glutton in usefulness. If I can get if I've made my product so well intuitive, then I don't necessarily need a salesperson to handheld the IT guy. Yeah, I got him. He bought the package. He got his business. He got all the seats working on it. But your position there to like walk and answer and custom support and things like that may not necessarily be needed anymore. So what do I do with you? And some of these people are on contract. Some of these people have been working there for years. Either way, the news is bad. And like I had mentioned at the top, this is the second time in 10 years that Microsoft has had to have such steep cut in employee layoffs or letting people go. So hopefully we don't see this again for a few more years. Maybe they did rip the Band-Aid off, and I don't say this flippantly. I'm saying this as an optimist for those who still have a job there, or people who are looking to maybe work there once again in the near future. I think after the Nokia thing, they were down to about 191,000 employees. So you can see that even having gotten rid of what they considered the bad baggage of Windows or Microsoft or Windows on mobile, whatever, they were still ready to hire another 30 to 40,000 people. So hopefully these things go in waves, and maybe Microsoft will be back up to 240 again in a few years, and those of you who are looking for jobs can get rehired.
And I think that's important to add. I think during the stress of getting laid off from a job or fired or whatever, people look at it like, okay, they'll never put these jobs back. Like you said, you have to remember it goes in ebbs and flows. While they may not hire the people back in customer service or sales or whatever, the job numbers do eventually come back. And something to remember, I come from the days where if you did something on a network, a system administrator was almost always required, somebody who had specific knowledge in how to help you run your business. One of the downsides of the cloud, if you will, is the easier they make the cloud, you have to remember maybe the less that administrator or the tech support, as you were saying, is needed. So there's pros and cons and checks and balances there to consider too.
Yeah, well, let's move on to something that may cheer some people up from this very depressing topic. Hardware rumors to be specific, and I know some of our fans here love hardware stuff. Unfortunately, this isn't the hardware that most people on this podcast are hoping to listen for, but we got something. We got Microsoft maybe putting its ARM-powered Surface Go 4 on hold and opting for Intel instead again. I believe the most recent information is coming from our boy Zach Bowden over at Windows Central, who also started the original ARM rumor to begin with, I believe about a year ago, is now saying that I think it's Project Tanta, Tanta, which is the ARM-powered version of the Surface Go 4, is being put on hold. We don't know if it's indefinite, if this is one of those kind of we're going to bury the ET game out in the desert and hope no one knows about it kind of situations, or if this is just, we're not ready this year for this. But either way, Microsoft is going to be going with the Intel N200 chip, which is, I believe, the replacement for the i3Y series or whatever they use, some kind of mobile version of their chipset. So it's supposed to, this version is supposed to be better than that gold version, more efficient, more powerful. So despite it still being Intel, we should see some benefits in that. But if you were looking for an ARM version of this, and with ARM we suspected some design changes to come with this, don't. I think he did say the only design change would happen internally, which would allow for a more repairable device, kind of going with their theme over the last couple of years, where they're allowing, like you mentioned, user repairability aspects to this. So I don't know if you're going to be able to replace batteries or anything like that, but there will be parts perhaps that you can upgrade or change or fix yourself thanks to the new internal design. But the outside should still remain roughly the same. The Intel chipset should be more powerful. I don't believe these things were fan operated, so you don't really need to worry about that. Maybe you need to worry a little bit about the heat, but we'll see how that is going forward. The other rumor we have is that the Surface Laptop Go could be more powerful, but because the same way that they're doing with the Surface Laptop Studio, they're nixing the entry-level 4GB version of this one. So instead of having, again, the 4GB at $499 or $599, I believe it was, we will now be seeing a 8GB and a starting price of around $699. So, and I believe, again, the internal design should be roughly the same. I don't know if they're going to be getting rid of the dedicated proprietary Surface charging port. I know that I've reviewed and tested out the Surface Thunderbolt 4 dock, which uses just a USB-C type Thunderbolt connector. If this is the way going forward, maybe they can save some space and just become more uniform with this thing. But we'll see. But either way, you're now going to be getting 8 gigs at $699 for this version, and I believe you're going to be getting starting off with 256 gigabytes of storage and a 12th core Core i5 processor. So better specs, more. The price is going to go up a little bit. Again, these things are designed to be going for, I believe, students. So I don't know how this price jump is going to affect the sales in that. We'll see. But based on, I don't even think we went over the quarterlies, but the hardware division is down. So we'll be seeing how well these new devices are selling, or will sell.
Am I the only one that's disappointed that the Go is not an ARM-based CPU? Well,
no, I think our audience may be, but let me, as you and I were talking kind of off mic a minute ago, let's temper those expectations because of the intended audience for this. It isn't you or I who would like to see Microsoft finally dedicate itself to an ARM processor. It's the businesses who still use these devices for probably single action ActiveX apps that were written specifically for Intel chipsets. So the learning curve for you and I would be easy. You know, we'd adapt and pivot and adapt. I think for these people who, have kiosks, who have stands that are built just to hold this thing, just to swipe in, sign in, take a purchase, have someone sign the credit card over, things like that. These apps are designed specifically for these things, for these use cases in a warehouse, wherever. When they get the updated version and their apps are suddenly incompatible, you've broken a whole system, and now your device and now you as a brand are a bit tainted. So it makes sense that they're going to go with this. Maybe next year we'll have 2 versions, like they did with the Surface Pro, where you have an ARM and you have the latest Intel Mobile. But I get it.
I would like to, looking at it from a straight consumer point of view, forget the fact that you and I are enthusiasts. I was thinking about something while you were talking there. Microsoft's entry-level point for ARM right now is the 12, the higher-end Surface, the 5G Surface Pro 9, I believe it is. That's the 5G model. Okay, you've got to break $1,000 to get the ARM experience. I get what we're saying about kiosk and breaking the ecosystem if the kiosks don't work because they're based on ARM, but Microsoft keeps inching ARM forward just a little bit at the time. It's very slow. If they had 2 versions of the Surface Go, one that was Intel, one that was ARM, make them price competitive, maybe let that ARM version slide in there at $50 cheaper. That way the consumer gets a taste of ARM with clear expectations of what it can do. I think that, that's clear. I think Microsoft has got to set the expectation. But from using an ARM device myself, for most productivity people, it will get the job done, and your battery life on an ARM device and your cooling right now, to me, is quite a bit better than what you get on the Intel AMD side of things. And the consumer is not going to get the opportunity to say, hey, Microsoft, we like this ARM thing you got going on here, and get it moving forward, because they're not going to make the $12.99 jump to try an ARM device. So I think there's got to be an entry level point in there to where the consumer feels comfortable with the risk of making the purchase.
I agree with you, but I think this is the only time where I'll agree with trickle-down economics, at least the theory. Is that Microsoft, just like Apple, is with Apple with their M1s and their iPad Pros and the software features, they always tailor that stuff to the high end because the person who's willing to spend that much tends to know what they're paying for. So you let all the development happen at the top end. You let everyone who paid $1,200-$1,300 to get the Surface Pro X go through that pain of fixing Windows on ARM as an operating system. You don't do like we did with Nokia, where you had the Lumia 50 or whatever, and you send it out to everyone, and everyone sends it back to you complaining because you've lowered the price, and everyone doesn't, they're not expecting certain things from this device. They just know that the price is there and that it should work for this price. If you put out ARM at $400, and you get tens of thousands of people who get it, and then nines of thousands of people who send it back saying, "Oh, this thing's broken," you've done yourself a disservice. But if you tailor it towards 500 people who are going to pay $1,500 for it, and 200 of them send it back saying, "Hey, this is broken," the other 200 gave you enough telemetry to say, "Hey," or 250 telemetry to say, "These are things that need to fix. This is how you keep working on it." And eventually, when you get it just right, and there's that pain point has been reduced to an infinitesimal amount, then you give it to everybody. And I think that's when they'll just make the switch versus having two forms of the same thing at a lower cost to say, "Hey, from now on, since we fixed it at the high end, Windows on ARM works, we'll just do it down the entire lineup." Surface laptops will start showing up with Windows on ARM. There will just be one version of the Surface Go on ARM. Maybe the Surface laptop moves to ARM. You'll be able to just do that versus having to kind of, let's keep making two versions of the same thing and testing it out, and we're spending more to make double the hardware and things like that. That's my theory on this. I could be wrong.
And I don't disagree with that viewpoint either. I just know the folks at Intel, if they heard what you just said, they just cringed and closed their laptop lids until they're done talking to both of us.
Probably. I think we've upset a bunch of people. AMD people, come talk to us. With that being said, let's get into our final discussion for the day, and maybe we'll keep this one short, but I feel like we're not going to. We have a lot to say about it. But Windows Copilot has a bunch of upcoming features, and this is unearthed by a leak. I believe Zeno, who's a renowned Windows enthusiast, recently lifted the veil in a wave of new capabilities that are expected to roll out to the future versions of Windows Copilot. And again, this is different from being Copilot because this is the one that sits on your device. Some of the features that are at least roadmapped are accessibility tools, where Windows 11 accessibility features will soon be available through Windows Copilot. The integration ensures that users with different abilities can easily navigate the system. So, you'll be able to voice activate high contrast, or make things, get narrated to kind of work instantly and stuff like that. Clock services, with the clock service feature, users will be able to set up timers, reminders, and alarms with ease. So I'm assuming you can do this either through your voice or type it in. Troubleshooting, so you'll have perhaps a dedicated user feedback section that help you optimize your feedback whenever you encounter bugs, or whenever you're having an issue with a driver or something like that. Right now, you have to kind of go to device manager, and then device manager will prompt you at that pointer, and go into settings, and then look for whatever it is you think is broken, and then type in the search or whatever. Maybe this is just an easier way to get to that. And you'll also be able to launch applications. Windows Copilot may soon allow users to launch. I think you can launch stuff that's first party on Windows, but maybe you'll be able to start launching more things like Spotify or Pinterest or YouTube or Adobe Premiere, stuff like that, through these prompts. And you may be launch specifically into sections of these apps. So you're I have a project that I was just previously editing, relaunch that one. So that kind of stuff. My question at the end of the day, though, is it necessary? Is it going to make Windows better or easier to use? Go ahead.
Well, it kind of goes back to us old folks. You and I, well, off camera, we called ourselves the old folks. We were raised in the keyboard, mouse. You need to change something, you click control panel, you click display, and even in recent years, they've just not changed the settings. It was control panel for many years. That's still what I look for is control panel and those old school things. And then I think of my little niece who is 3 and is just getting her start in technology. If, when she comes through, if computers are operated via AI, like you're mentioning, that's what she's going to do. She's going to say the prompt, she's going to type the prompts. That's what, that's how she will be taught to interact. Just like, you know, touch screens kind of came in, in the middle of our generations. But, how often did we use a touch screen? We were still looking those cell phones and those devices with the slide out keyboards, the palm devices, for example, because that's what we were used to. I don't see the old folks necessarily catching on to the co-pilot way of doing things, because Cortana, I hate to bring this old girl back up, but
Just beat a dead horse.
Yeah, that was kind of her purpose in a way, was it not? To get people to interact differently. And I don't think whether you're talking to your device or whatever, us old folks, we're going to go back to that mouse and keyboard. The young folks that get taught the AI way, the kids in schools, the 3, 4, 5-year-olds and on up, they're going to do it the AI way and look at us old folks like, you actually used that mouse and that keyboard. You actually did that. Yes. But is it needed for people now? I don't think so.
I'm going to push back a little bit on this and say
Okay.
that I think we are in a transition period. I grew up with the GUI. I have a father-in-law who didn't. And he tells me about the stories, and he's in that transition of going from having to, like you said, command prompt everything to get your system to work. There, you didn't have a background, you didn't have a mouse that like moved and dragged and resized windows and opened up several things. You had your commands and you had your calculations, and that's what a computer spat out for you. I believe we are in potentially that next phase, because at some point you may not even have a taskbar or a dock. You'll just have a screen. Maybe you can put a background on it if you want, and then you'll have that one button that goes to whatever AI thing is. And if it's me and I'm saying, hey, I need to pull up my records from last month's P&L, and I need to cross-reference that with how this week's going, I type all that in, and Excel pops up 2 versions and a chart already made that already does exactly what I asked it to do, versus me having to manually go into Office, open up Excel, open up another Excel, put them all in the same sheet, then run all the math, and then actually find a chart that works best to represent it, and then send that to my boss. I can just type all that into Copilot or Bard or whatever the next version is for Mac or whatever, and that is already working for me. I no longer need to navigate the actual screen, the actual physical screen of the operating system. I think that's where we're transitioning to, and I believe that's where Microsoft and everyone's hoping it goes. We'll see. I don't believe you and I will, necessarily gravitate towards that very easily. But like you said, to your niece who is much younger, to my daughters who are younger, that may be the way they interact with things. It's, I type in this thing and 5 or 6 things get done, versus what we were thought with Cortana was like, oh, we kind of played around with, we gave it a personality. We thought it'd be kind of fun to banter back and forth. Now it's just, I need these 6 or 7 things done at once, and I don't have the time or I don't have the patience to do it myself. So you, computer, do it. And it goes through the system and figures it out for you. Same thing with like, hey, I want to, if you're studying for, say you're studying for law, you're about to go to law school, and you're like, you know what, I need a study session. Put on my, law mixtape on Spotify, set it for about an hour, pull up the last books I was reading and referencing. I need to highlight a section, and I also want to cross-reference it with this, specific case study. It'll pull up Spotify, start playing the music, it'll pull up your notes, and then it'll pull up a web page for the specific case law that you're looking at. And you didn't have to go anywhere on your operating system to do all that. You just typed it into the box. So I think that's where Windows is hoping it goes to. Will it make it useful now? No, but perhaps in the future.
I think, the scenarios that you gave out there are really good. First off, I think, you were referring more to information or in data manipulation.
Right.
And I think that absolutely, I mean, I'm gonna be the first to admit when they put Copilot in the beta build of Windows this week, at least that's when I got it. And you've got the icon down there. It's just Bing chat. It's not full on, Windows Copilot. But I do find that I have picked that thing up and asked it questions and asked it to produce things that are more than just a few clicks for me, such as what you mentioned, manipulating spreadsheet data. What I don't see is you and I going, hey, Copilot, change my background or change
Yeah.
my brightness. I see us, okay, click, that's what I want. I'm done. Manipulation, information manipulation like that, you're darn right I'm going to use it. I'm going to make sure that, I don't have to spend that 45 minutes, that hour and a half, in Excel. I mean, I know you do it
Mhm.
for a living, but who wants to stare at an Excel spreadsheet for 2 hours when Copilot will knock it out in 30 seconds?
That is the idea. And as far as like the operating of the OS, like you said, to dim your lights and things like that, that is more of a manual process. That's something you have to kind of train the AI for. Those kind of things to kind of set up like, all right, well, my daily routine is in the mornings. I want the brightness at 50%. I want these things opened up I want news opened up. I want Twitter opened up. And I want, a certain website opened up at these times. Like that's the stuff that you're gonna have to like train it and work it through. But again, I think at the end of the day, that's what Microsoft wants it to do. I think at some point, I don't know if it's going to help them with making a lighter OS because I think at the end of the day, everybody who uses Windows wants a lighter Windows and a less babysitting of the operating system. You want it to just, you yearn for the like, oh, just open up your lid and get to work versus like, oh, here's an update and here, my drivers are broken because Bose or Intel or Sonos updated something on their end and I didn't know about it, so now I need to go fix that. That kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily see Copilot doing any of that stuff yet. That's when I think if it can start doing that kind of stuff, searching out for drivers and updates from other places and saying, hey, we have it. You ready to update it? Do you have any time to do it today? We'll get it all fixed and we'll get it working your way. That kind of stuff I think is where Copilot will really take off for us old school Windows users and even for new people. Just less things you have to think about when you open up the lid for your to get work done.
And I know it's coming our way, but Microsoft, I think it's in testing with small groups. We had covered it on the site. I'm ready to see full on Copilot or whatever. If Microsoft changes the name, that's great. If they add things to it, that's great. But I'm ready to see two things. I'm ready to see it in Microsoft 365. I'm ready to start seeing it do things for me on a daily basis, manipulate the data on a spreadsheet in a Word document, summarize it for me and send it off to our editor. Look, this is a story idea I have. Okay, Copilot, summarize, my sources here and send that off to our editor. Those are the things that I want to see. And then I want to see Windows 12, I'm assuming, is where we're going to find the full AI integration on some level. When it is integrated into Windows and I can literally sit down and start taking tasks that may take me 15 minutes and say, hey, Copilot, it's Friday at 3 p.m. This is what I need you to do every Friday at 3 p.m. And it happens.
Yes, that would be ideal. We will wait for that future to come. As of right now, those of us who are lucky enough to get a version of Copilot, to your point, it's more of being chat just on Windows, but we'll see what Microsoft can do. With that being said, let's bring this up to a wrap. We'd like to thank everyone for hanging out with us and listening to us meander about being old and liking older versions of Windows and the way things used to be. And those of you who are looking for the future, at least keep your eye rolls to a minimum. But where can people find you if they want to talk to you or give you some more good wishes?
David, PAJ1978 on Twitter, and I promise I do not have a machine running Windows 3.1. I don't.
Don't believe him, folks. Don't believe him. You can find me at Mindhead1 on Twitter, just Kareem Anderson on Threads. If you want to talk about David's Windows 3.1 usage. Other than that, we want to thank you guys for being with us. Again, for acknowledging and appreciating our time off last week. We will continue to bring you new updates and more information and hopefully some guests as well. Before we wrap this up, I do want to talk about our hardware section real quick, which is I am currently reviewing and wrapping up a review for the Lenovo Slim Pro 9i, both the 14 and 16 inch. I have the ThinkPad X1 Nano as well. I have a 4-movie home theater projection system that I am wrapping up a review for, as well as getting access to the Dell XPS 13 Pro, the 13 Gen chipset. So that's the one with the like super flat, crazy design. And I just got Samsung had reached out, and I believe I may be able to review a Tab S9. So I'm going to put that head to head with the Surface Pro and see if Android is finally able to kind of circumvent Windows on tablets, and maybe that's just where we go from now on. Because I do believe the only Windows tablets are available are the one you're reviewing. I think there's a Dell one, and the Surfaces, right? Does HP have one?
HP does not have one that we're going to consider.
Asus has a gaming one, I think, or something, right?
Yeah, they've got the X13.
Okay, but there isn't very much there, especially not in the tablet form. These are just, we're talking about tablet computers. I'm talking about pure tablet devices. I think the Go is maybe the closest thing.
I think, and something you had mentioned, I've got a Ace Magician, which is a Chinese company that we have, not heard a lot about. I've got a mini PC that is supposed to arrive today. And what's interesting about these little things is they're made off of the laptop internals. They don't have the full desktop internals, but for those that are familiar, they're about the size of your Roku boxes, your set-top boxes. The particular one that I have coming does support multiple 4K monitors, and there are a couple of these that do have the laptop integrated discrete GPUs. So I'm interested to see where those will take me. Let's see. We've got the Robo Encala 2-in-1. That review should be coming next week, and I hope a lot of you check that out. That device has been probably the most surprising device that I personally have reviewed in 2023. And I am also finishing up some of the Lenovo Legion gaming laptop reviews, and I'm going to see if we can get our hands on the slim version of some of those to see what maybe some of those differences are.
Yes, so lots of hardware reviews coming at you from the two of us, so check the site out for that. For any other news or updates, again, you can check Twitter, you can check Threads, you can go to the website. We are trying to be at all the places. I believe Facebook has picked up again since we've been on Threads. So you can find information from both of us and our colleagues as well at onmicrosoft.com. Until then, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good weekend, folks.